He's facing the greatest crisis of his career. Nevertheless, as you said in your program, it was a defiant speech, a tough speech, but not a totally uncompromising speech. He did speak about a new constitution which would create a new political map, a more diverse map for Syria. He said this would be put to a referendum, that there would be fresh elections, a new government would be formed, including members of the opposition. So he is looking for a way out of the crisis, but on his own terms.
Or you could suggest that he is perhaps a very frightened man, and he's being defiant simply because he's been backed into a corner. In May of last year...
I wouldn't...
Patrick, sorry, in May of last year, you suggested that there was a power struggle within the regime, that there were hardliners, there were modernisers. Where does that play out in your mind today?
I would say that he remains very much in control. If there was a power struggle, as there may well have been, and obviously in a crisis like this there are furious debates inside the regime, but he inherited a powerful presidency, and I think he is still very much in control. Now, I wouldn't say he was frightened. He was rather self-confident. He thinks that he can see this thing out. You see, the opposition is not in a position to topple him. He still has major assets. The Russians, who've just sent a fleet to Tartus and to protect him at the United Nations. There's still a slice of the population that seems to favor him. Government officials, the new middle classes, and of course the minorities. It's not as if the whole country was against him. And so one has to also say that the opposition, brave as it is, hasn't yet come up with a clear political project, or a clear leader for that matter. It remains divided. So I would say that he thinks I think he's playing for time. He thinks that he can hold out for several more months. And indeed, if he can survive these coming months, he thinks he can survive for much longer.
Let's broaden this out to some of the regional implications. Do you think Iran, for example, its increasingly bellicose language, is because it is scared, if you like, that if Syria, if the Bashar al-Assad regime falls in Syria, it will lose its influence in a key part of the Middle East?
No question about it. I mean, there is this Tehran, Damascus, Hezbollah axis, which has been the main obstacle to American and Israeli hegemony in the region. That's what he means when he says he's facing a foreign conspiracy, abetted by some Arab states. He's determined, I think, to stand firm. That the only trouble is that the massacre is continuing. And there are two problems here. One is how to stop the killing. And secondly, of course, when this crisis is over, how are the Syrians going to be able to live together after all this bloodletting? There's going to be such a thirst for revenge that it's going to be very, very difficult to put Syrian society back together again.
And you also mentioned in something that you wrote that apart from the bloodshed inside Syria, there could be what you described as an orgy of violence in the entire region if Syria does go south, as you put it. Do you still see that as a possibility?
Well, I do, of course. I think countries like Jordan and Lebanon could well suffer greatly. I mean, the civil war could be reignited in Lebanon, for example, which nobody wants to see. The thing is, in Syria, there are quite a lot of people who see what happened in Iraq, for example, with their sectarian civil war, the hundreds of thousands killed, the millions displaced or reduced to being refugees, and nobody particularly wants that. Now, Assad today did say that he was not closing the door on an Arab solution. He attacked the Arab League, but he's still counting on the Arab League, I think, to win him time. The mission will remain there for at least another month, possibly two. In March, I believe that Iraq, which is an ally of Syria, will take over the chairmanship of the Arab League. I think he thinks that he's still got several more months and perhaps longer to survive this crisis.